Hello, it's Mr. Jones here. I just wanted to take this opportunity to welcome you all back to school, albeit in this very unusual online setting. I hope that you've all had a really nice and relaxing Christmas and New Year, but are ready to return to your routines of work. Your task for today is to complete this 20-question grid. It's attached in the resources to help you section below, so you can either download it and print it off and work directly onto the sheet, or you can write your working out and answers into your maths book. This is very similar to the tasks that you've been set for homework and that you've done in lessons. However, it's a new set of questions, a new set of topics, so therefore the next part of this video will explain how to answer each individual pair of questions in the grid. The first style of question will always be an expand and simplify. So there's two things that you need to be able to do here. The first thing is expand a bracket, and secondly is collecting like terms at the end to simplify your answer. So for our question, we're asked to expand and simplify three lots of 2a plus b plus two lots of a plus 3b. Firstly, I hope you can see if I split and I draw a line just down there, we've got a bracket to expand on the left and a bracket to expand on the right. Let's do this now. So if we expand the first bracket, we have a 3 at the front, so we want to do 3 times 2a, which is 6a, and also 3 times positive b, which gives us plus 3b. That's the left bracket expanded. If I look on the right hand side, I have a positive 2. This sign just here being positive is really important because it will impact my answer. So because it's positive 2, I'm going to do positive 2 times a, which gives me positive 2a, and also positive 2 times positive 3b, which gives me positive 6b. Again, be really careful. If this is a negative sign, it will obviously change your answer. Now we've expanded our brackets, we can collect like terms to get our final answer. So we have 6a, and we're adding another 2a to it, which gives us 8a in total, and likewise we have positive 3b, and we're adding another 6b to it. That gives us positive 9b. The reason this is a plus sign is because the amount of b that we have is positive. The second type of question will always be a division. Now the types of division we're going to look at have really big numbers at the end, and sometimes we can split the divisor up to make it a little bit easier to work out. So for example, we know that 63 is the same as 7 times by 9. So instead of dividing by 63, I could divide by 7 first and take my answer, and then divide by 9. So let's have a go at doing this now. We want to start off by dividing by 7, so I'm going to have a bus stop with 7 on the outside, and inside my bus stop I've got 1512. 1 divided by 7 is 0, remainder 1. 15 divided by 7 is 2, remainder 1. 11 divided by 7 is 1, remainder 4. And lastly, 42 divided by 7 is 6. So I know 1512 divided by 7 is 216. That means I've divided by 7, so I can finish off by dividing by 9. So I want another bus stop, this time with 9 on the outside, and I'm going to divide into my answer, which was 216. So again, 2 divided by 9 is 0, remainder 2. 21 divided by 9 would be 2, remainder 3. And lastly, 36 divided by 9 is 4. So I've now divided by 9 as well, and that means my answer is 24. Sometimes you won't be able to split the divisor up like this, and if it's a prime number and it's quite big, I recommend just writing out the multiples of that number and using it to help you work out how many times a number goes into another and what the remainder is. The third type of question will always be a division as well, however it's got lots of zeros in it. We can think of this question like an equivalent fraction and cross out any common terms. So because I've cancelled out 2 of the zeros in the divisor, I must cancel out 2 from the number that I'm dividing into. That way the answer will stay equivalent. So all I need to do now is work out the answer to 480 divided by 8. Whatever the answer to that is going to be the same as the original question. So I can use a bus stop if I'm unsure, put an 8 on the outside and 480 on the inside. 4 divided by 8 is 0, remainder 4. 48 divided by 8 is 6, and 0 divided by 8 is 0, giving me an answer of 60. So both of these are equivalent, they're both equal to 60. There's a few things that we need to know in order to answer question number 4, which is our metric conversions to do with capacity and volume. So we need to know that 1 litre is equal to 1000 millilitres. We also need to know that 1 litre is equal to 100 centilitres, and that 1 centilitre is equal to 10 millilitres. They're the 3 main conversions that you need to know. However, we only need one of them for this question, which is this first one. So if I know that 1 litre is equal to 1000 millilitres, so litres and millilitres, and I want to know how much there are in 4 litres, a bit like what we looked at with our ratios before, to get from 1 to 4 I have times by 4. Therefore the number of millilitres that I have are going to be times by 4 as well, meaning there are 4000 millilitres in 4 litres. So that is my answer. For the 5th style of question, it's always going to be a decimal multiplication. Now, in order to work these questions out, let's first think about what the answer would be if we remove the decimal places. So my particular example just here would become 29 times by 45. I'm going to use a column method of multiplication to work this out. So firstly, 5 times 9 is 45, and 5 times 2 is 10, plus the 4 is 14. Now I'm going to add a 0 because instead of timesing by 4 I'm actually timesing by 40, and I'm going to do the same thing. So 4 times 9 is 36, 4 times 2 is 8, plus the 3 is 11, and I want to add these answers together, which gives me 5, 4 and 6 is 10, 1, 1 and 1 is 3, and the 1 at the end gives me 1305. Now, the digits of the question that I started off with are going to be exactly the same as that, 1305. However, we need to remember to add back in the decimal places that I ignored. So the 9 comes after my decimal place, and the 5 in my question comes after the decimal place. Therefore, I need to add from right to left 2 more decimal places back into my answer, meaning the final answer is 13.05. For question 6, we're asked to round to 1 decimal place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite my number to start off with, which is 4.553. If I want 1 decimal place in my answer, I therefore need to go to my decimal place and count 1 space and then put a line to cut it off. Now, my answer is either going to remain as 4.5, or this digit at the end is going to go up and become 4.6. And how we decide is by looking at this number to the right of my line. We need to ask ourselves, is this 5 or more? So is it 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9? Because the answer is yes, I therefore need to round up and my answer becomes 4.6. However, if this number was a 0, 1, 2, 3 or 4, I would simply leave my answer as 4.5. Question 7 will always be a solve an equation which has a bracket in it. So this is very similar to what we've seen already. However, we need to expand a bracket before we can start solving. So we want to solve 4 lots of x minus 3 is equal to 12. Let's first expand the bracket. So this 4 at the front wants to times by the x and wants to times by the minus 3 at the end. 4 times x gives me 4x, and 4 times minus 3 gives me minus 12, and we know that that is equal to 12 at the end. I can now go through the process of solving it, so I want to split it down my equal sign and think about one side having only my x's on and my other side having only my numbers. If I look in my x side, I have a minus 12, which is not an amount of x, so I want to add 12 onto that side to make sure it cancels out and becomes nothing. However, in order to keep balance, because these two things need to be equal, I need to also add 12 onto the right hand side. That gives me 4x left over on the left. I know that minus 12 and plus 12 cancels out and becomes nothing, and on the right I have 12 plus 12, which is 24. So again, I have 4 lots of x, but I want to know what 1x is. Because 4x means 4 times by x, the inverse of timesing by 4 is going to be dividing by 4. But just like before, I want to divide by 4 onto both sides to make sure I keep the balance between my equation. So 4x divided by 4 leaves me with 1x, which is what I want, and 24 divided by 4 is 6. Therefore my answer is x equals 6. Question 8 will always be a question about order of operations, or what some of you refer to as BIDMAS or BODMAS. So you need to go through the process of asking yourself, firstly, are there brackets? Secondly, is there any order, indices or powers? Then, is there a division? Then, is there a multiplication? And lastly, is there an addition or subtraction? Now just remember, when you get to the last part where there's just addition and subtraction left over, do it in the order that it appears in, just to make sure you avoid getting any mistakes with your negatives. So for our question, we're asked to work out 3 plus 4 times 2. When I go down my list, there's no brackets, there's no powers, there's no division, but there is a multiplication, so I'm going to underline that first. 4 times 2 I'm going to work out, and I know that that's 8, and everything else comes down in the order that it appears in the question. So because I have a 3 and a plus sign at the front of 4 times 2, the 3 and the plus comes down to the left of the 8. If there were some calculations on the right hand side, they would also come down to the right of the 8. Now at this point I'm left with just 3 plus 8, which is 11, but otherwise I'd have to go through, carry on from multiplication, and then see if there was any addition or subtraction left over at the end. The 9th question will always ask you to evaluate a power or some sort of sum that has powers in it. Now the word evaluate just means work out in terms of numbers. So if I'm asked to evaluate 2 to the power of 4, this simply means work out what the answer to 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is. So I know 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times another 2 would be 8, and 8 times the final 2 would give me 16 as my answer. For my second example, I just need to think a little bit more carefully about my order of operations, because I'm going to have to do these powers before I add my two answers together. So first of all, let's think what these two powers are. 5 cubed means 5 times 5 times 5, and 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times another 5 would be 125. 2 squared means 2 times 2, and I know that that's 4, and these are being added together. So essentially I want to work out 5 cubed, which is 125, added to 2 squared, which is 4. That gives me an answer of 129. The last question will always be a fraction of an amount. So in this particular question we're asked to work out what 2/3 of 210 is. If I wanted to work out 1/3 of 210, I would simply divide by 3. However, I want 2 lots of this, so once I've divided by 3, I'm going to double my answer because I want 2/3 and not just 1. So that means I divide by the denominator and I times by the numerator. I would suggest dividing first because that will make your answer smaller, and then you can times afterwards otherwise it might get a little bit complicated. So in order to work this out, I would start off by doing 210 divided by 3. That gives me an answer of 70. That would be 1/3 of 210. I'd then take this answer of 70 and times it by 2, because that is my numerator. This doubles a third to give me the 2/3 that I asked for, 140. Again, if you're struggling to work out any parts of this calculation, you've got your bus stop and you've got your column multiplication that you can use to work out either the divide or the times answer. If you are struggling to complete some of the work from today's lesson, then please do not hesitate to get in touch via comment on Show My Homework. I'll try to make myself as available as possible and get a reply to you as quickly as I can. If the issue requires a little bit more input from myself, I might ask to arrange a time to meet on Teams where I can give you some personalised help with that specific problem.